this is where I think comic books need to look at wrestling. Johnny, maybe you can side with me on this.
Please, Jay, lay it on me.
How do you defeat the heel but keep him strong after the pin? Right? How do you do that? Right? How do you make the babyface lose? Right? But he still goes over. How do you do that? How do you keep people rooting for the hero who just got egg thrown on his face?
Heel retains the title through disqualification. That's the easy way out of that.
Right. But it's not always that, right? It's CM Punk, pulling out Drew McIntyre's a leg when Damian Priest comes in and cashes the Money in the Bank, right? So now you just built out 3 different storylines from that one moment. Yeah. How do you do that in comic books?
Well, that's true. Well, I mean, CM Punk's a heel in real life too, so
yeah.
Well, it's sort of like think about like in Batman Nightfall. Bane was one of the coolest villains for that storyline, but then he lost. And then every time they brought him back to lose again, became less interesting and less intimidating at each time they brought him. Same with Doomsday. Fascinating, he killed Superman, but every time he brought Doomsday back to lose again, he becomes less and less interesting each time.
So how do you keep him strong?
You got to reinvent the character, right? You got to come in from a different angle. Like and there was kind of widely, kind of controversial is, when Doc Ock died, but then inhabited Spider-Man's body. Right, Superior Spider-Man was such a new and fresh take on just kind of making the villain the hero, or even Thunderbolts. Right, or you look at the original Thunderbolts with Zemo pretending to be heroes. I mean, that's great ways of reinventing it, twisting it, turning it inside out. What if, things like that? The What If series.
Or how about, Jason Goes to Hell, where in the last scene you got Freddy's claw coming and drag him out, right?
Yeah,
he's done. You think the franchise is over? Oh my God, huge pop! I can't wait to see what comes next.
Yeah,
right. Or you like. So, in kind of in the same vein, when you look at how the way Alien versus Predator came together, where there was just subtly that alien skull in the background, but that made such an impact in fandom that it demanded that it happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, I think I think who did a great job in developing villains was Jeff Johns. Because you take a character like Sinestro, and then you develop into the Sinestro Core War. Sinestro gets the Sinestro Core. They leveled him up. Now he's just not himself. Now he's himself with the army behind him. Now you just explore that. And then after that, they explored it. They built upon him even greater, giving him some more power. And I thought he did a great job of leveling up villains. So you felt, okay, this is a new threat. Same guy, new threat, because they did something totally different to make him even more intimidating the next time around.
Yeah. Black Hand and Necron, right? They built up that stuff. Yeah.
Anybody with a widow's peak, you got to watch out for them, just don't trust them.
Well, I also think that was one of the cool things that made the Civil War in the comics so awesome is that they took this real D-level villain in Nitro and he caused this one event inconsequentially that rift that shattered the Marvel universe. Talk about what a great way to reinvent a villain, right? And kind of make it fresh when he was like a D-list villain. And then even more so, they took a hero in Speedball who was so tortured by that happening that he turned himself into a villain and became like Penance or something like that. Yeah. That was a cool way of making things fresh and reinventing heroes, villains, that kind of vibe.
Right. I want to go back to what Jay said about characters. I think the moral ambiguousness of characters is the most fascinating aspect of any character. Mm-hmm. You give them a little something to question, the righteousness of a character, but hero or villain, and it makes them so much more interesting. I think I try to in my comic books make them as morally ambiguous as humanly possible. It's because let's face it, we all are that.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, I think that's definitely interesting as well. I love seeing that. I love seeing new takes on that. Go ahead, Johnny.
I was gonna say Harry because
I just want to make a quick comment because I know Jeff, you wrote that the Nightmare Patrol with the monsters and everything else, and one reason why I liked Frankenstein in general, or Frankenstein's monster in general, and the Incredible Hulk. Not only are they green, but I like them because they didn't really ask to be made. You know what I mean? Like somebody brought them to life. Like somebody created by an accident, the Hulk came to be. You know, he didn't ask to be the Hulk. He didn't ask to exist. You know, and now all of a sudden, like he's like fighting, the world pretty much. And Frankenstein's monster, he didn't ask to be created. Like here he is now, like a misunderstood and feared and like hated or whatever. And he didn't ask to be made. So I feel very compassion for them. Because I just feel kind of bad for them in a way, but.
Well, that's the thing I think that it kind of bothers me that people miss out on. The Frankenstein from the actual novel is infinitely more interesting than the Frankenstein in the movies. Mm-hmm. And how he is morally ambiguous, how he is such a good reflection on humanity on some level. And he's way more interesting than the Frankenstein in the movies, who is basically this incredibly dumb character, which, I mean, I get where there's some sympathy and apathy can go towards the character, but you're missing out on the fascination of having this new life that is rejected and it's just learning from humanity from this outside, almost like from through a mirror, trying to see what we look like. It's a much better character.
In terms of morally ambiguous, I mean, I don't know who didn't connect with Luke Skywalker in the original trilogy when he was struggling to walk the path of the light, right? And seeing his reflection in his father's helmet, in Vader's helmet, wearing black by the third movie, you're like, oh my God, what's going to happen? You know what I mean? Just being a kid and just seeing all that unfold is just, and that was very interesting. That I think, if you're young and you see the original trilogy, that's kind of your first dabbling with like good, evil.
My wife made a good point about when we're talking about characters and what to do with them, but Omni-Man from Invincible, is so evil, but then makes, as they grow the character, you start to question, the beliefs in them and stuff. You know?
Well, it's the line of villainy and fatherhood, right?
Yeah.
That's the beauty right there. It's what makes Magneto interesting.
Omni-Man gets infected with humanity. Like it's just, and he doesn't know what to do.
Or Dr. Evil. I mean, he's evil, but he's beloved, You love that guy.
I'll call him Mini-Me.
Right. Speaking of fathers,
He's got his boots on tight. He's wearing black, ready for a fight. They're headed to Manchester. The crowd's insane. AEW's here, and they're taking the reins. The lights go down, the ring is set, the air is buzzing. There's no regret.